Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talking Points with KPI, episode 23. Today we have two familiar faces, Curtis to my right and Eric to my left. Today we're going to be talking about YDP, which stands for Youth Development Program. Yet Curtis is in charge of it, and Eric helps out with it, obviously. So we're just going to get a little brief overview. So, Curtis, if you'd like to talk just a little bit about what YDP is.
Yes, so YDP, obviously, our youth development program starts at ages from 8 years old all the way up to 14. We believe, 8 years old is kind of the age we want to start getting guys in here and becoming familiar with our program, because that, initially leads to, all the way through high school, college, and, hopefully when these guys get drafted out of here. We definitely want to start them at a young age. Obviously, we know, you can even get started before that, but 8 is a good age for them to get the foundation of, KPI and what we do here. We bring them in. Obviously, we run them through a lot of fundamentals on, pretty much baseball 101 and how to move. We always want to, focus on the importance of just being an all-around good athlete. If we can teach just kids how to be good athletes, it's going to correlate to their movements on the field and whatnot. That's kind of what we do here for our youth development. Obviously, we'll get into more details of it, but that's kind of the wide range of what we do here.
Yeah. So, Eric, you can talk a little more, like Eric Curtis said, a little bit more on the details. So, how does someone go about getting into our YDP?
They sell out, so it's definitely like when we advertise the next season for our program, you should definitely get on it quick, because we've sold out our YDP, I think, a couple years in a row, so even before the KPI name. So that's a big thing. And just have a general expectation that, sometimes we have 6-year-olds that want to get a knee and stuff like that. Like every level and every offering we have is appropriate for that level, so right now we have some 7th and 8th graders that, are pushing that boundary of being ready for our high school program, which is much more intensive, but they're still getting the foundational movement, they're still getting the tech, they're still getting the approach we would roll out, and sometimes everyone wants what the older guys do, and that's not necessarily the best thing all the time.
So Curtis, you're being with these kids and training with them a lot. Talk about what goes into, and I won't go into the field yet, but let's talk about a day for a YDP kid at the facility. What does that look like?
Yeah, obviously it starts with the staff here. We have a great staff, who prepare themselves for the program. It's a 2-hour session, usually 2 to 3 months long, depending on what season it is. Right now in the winter is a 2-month course, because we know season's around the corner. But so they start by coming in. We run them through a warm up, to get their bodies going. It's cold right now. And then from there, they split up into 2 groups, because we have a pretty big group right now, kids. So one group will go to the.
I don't want to cut you up, but just mention how many kids do you think is max in a group?
Right now we have 40 kids, so 20 kids per group, and we run it with 2 sessions. So, wide range, like I said, from ages 8 to 14, who love the game, but they love what we do here, and so. We as a staff prepare ourselves as we want to give these kids the best experience they can possibly have here, with all the tech, but we keep it fun, we keep it competitive, and, we keep things flowing here. And that's what I think the kids do love is, we truly do care about these kids, and they ask questions, which we love, and, they want to hear our feedback as well on why we're doing certain things we're doing.
Yeah.
After they warm up, they go do their strength and conditioning, then we do our speed and agility. That's what we do to start, and then from there we go into our hitting segment. Tee and movement, medicine ball throws to their actual hitting program. Which with 40 kids it is a stretch, but we make it happen here with 4 cages we have. We split up 2 big tunnels that we have here to make it 4 groups of 5. And each cage definitely has their focus, their emphasis on either bat speed, attack angle, where we want them to be as far as exit velo on the hit tracks, And we play games. Last night we just played home run derby, and these kids are just absolutely having a blast. I'm hoping we do a segment on maybe even getting a kid mic'd up on a youth because these kids just have wonderful chatter. They obviously have a lot of energy, but just seeing them compete and hearing their language at that age is pretty awesome. It keeps us definitely the laughter in here. But these kids get after it. We definitely set up 4 different hitting stations of some challenging constraints, challenging drills for these kids. And we don't necessarily, like I said, we're not going to hold their hand and, literally position their hands. Like, we give them the drill and we said, let's see how you do it first, the first round. And some of these kids, definitely figure it out faster than others. That's how life is. But some of the kids that struggle, their second round, obviously, they get, I'm not going to say mad, but the competitiveness comes out and they're like, I got to do better. And they start figuring out with their body. They start compensating movements to figure out where they want to hit the ball. That's kind of the 2-hour segment on the hitting side. I know Cam's not here. Eric can touch on it more on the throwing and arm care side of things. But we do that on Tuesday nights right now, and on Thursdays is our pitching and arm care nights, which I know Eric will touch on a little bit here.
I want to piggyback before I get on that. Just a couple things Kurt just said. So in a 2-hour session, they're going to get a full warm up, medicine ball throws, explosive work. A full skill session with tech. That tech is going to be theoretically bat sensors, hit tracks, swing speed sensors where it shows how hard they're swinging. Tens of thousands of dollars worth of tech, plus they're going to work out in a state-of-the-art weight room. With professional coaches at each one of those stations. So just the amount of stuff they're getting in 2 hours is pretty extreme, and they're getting all the same coaches that our high school guys are getting, where we have, probably 30 Division I commits that train here. They're getting all the same access to that stuff at their age, which is huge.
And even mentioning that these athletes come in at a time where they get to see these division athletes still train. So even being able to see that gives them something to look forward to. But to back on to the YDP program as a whole, these kids are young. These kids are in high school. They don't have a team for high school to play on in the spring. What do you see a lot in these youth development kids that you want to get them on that program in the spring?
Well, it's huge. So, obviously we have some incredible high school players that train here. Almost all of them started training at a young age. Yeah. Not just playing baseball and practicing. I'm talking like training, weightlifting, strength and movement training. And what it does is when you start training in those years right before puberty, it really creates the habits and the foundational movement and strength base that you're going to need to carry you through your high school and college years. So, our high school guys, it's normal for them to work out. It's part of their life now because it started at a young age. And a lot of times we get some pretty talented guys in here as juniors or seniors in high school, and that's really a tough nut for us to crack, is making this a part of their routine. So really, you create some super strong foundational building blocks when you start doing this in the late elementary, middle school years, and those lessons, those lifelong lessons, are going to carry them through, not only from a health point of view, but just like, hey, this is how I operate. This is my life. This is part of what I do. And I think that's a really understated aspect of something like this, and really where we differentiate ourselves, because you can go to any baseball practice and they look kind of similar. When you go to a field and you see them practice. But you can't replicate that environment of like, hey, I get to track my velocity as a 12-year-old. I get to have professional coaching, a professional strength trainer, a professional hitting coach, a professional pitching coach at that age. When I come into a facility like that, and guess what? It's less price than an individual lesson would be. So I think those are the aspects that are super important at the young ages that carry them through to the older ages.
Yeah. And so, real quick, if I man, just to piggyback off that, is the beauty about training with us here is these kids get to hear from not just one voice. They get 5 to 15 different voices talking to them, and I'm not saying you're gonna listen, but you're not gonna comprehend every single person, but you can levitate to 2 or 3 of them, and those will stick with you as you play, Yeah. And so that's the beauty of what we do here is like you're gonna get a bunch of feedback, and it's what works for you that you're gonna take with you, obviously.
Well, we've talked about it in a previous podcast. For those of you who listen, I mean, all our coaches, they speak 1,000 different languages to these kids, and obviously not different languages, but different terms and terminologies to these kids that all our coaches are able to do, and it's very impressive. But I want to touch on the training just a little bit for these young kids. You guys also do, besides facility work, you guys do something that's a little different. You guys also take them to the field and let them practice and get the same environment. And we don't have to get all the data, but you also do bring Rapsodos and a lot of tech to the field, which a lot of people are, I wouldn't say scared to do, but you don't see it a lot. Talk about how you've seen that. It's an open question. Whoever wants to talk about it first can, but talk about how you've seen that kind of either incentivize these kids to start getting in this program or either just help them in general.
I'll start just because I want to give Kurt some kudos on what he's doing, but so Curtis, every month that we have YDP, puts out a report on blast, the bat sensor, on all the different metrics that we track, and then on the exit velocity, either through hit tracks or episode, depending on what we're using and if we're in here or at the field or not. And basically what that does is, hey, we show our work.
Yeah.
Hey, you're going to pay for your money for your kid to come train here. We're going to show you that it's working. And so we're able to integrate the players into our systems that we have at the older ages. And there's very specific systems that we use for our hitters and our pitching. And then we roll that out at the younger ages. Kurt takes those numbers, puts them all together and sends it out. And, we've had incredible bat speed gains through all the different YDP programs we've done. Throwing's a little bit more contextual. Like right now, we're not going for velocity when we're throwing because we're trying to build them up. We're trying to give them arm care in the spring, so we're not necessarily throwing as hard as we can right now in the training program. But what that tech does is it allows not only us to show their work, but allows the boys to get into something. They don't get that at a normal baseball practice, so they can come out here and they can see exactly how hard that they hit, and then when they beat that in 2 weeks, the look on their faces is priceless. Yeah. And you just that is one of the reasons we go so heavy on the tech is because it just gives them immediate objective feedback, and they get really, really into it.
Yeah. No, for sure. That's huge. Is the engagement part of it is, these kids. Not all I'm gonna say come from video game. Not some kids may not have, but it's what they like to do, and now bringing that to a field where they're actually hitting and getting numbers right then and there, is they love that stuff, right? They want to keep leveling up their game, and so speaking a similar language to an 8-year-old as an older coach and bridging that gap with this tech it's a beautiful thing. I don't see why if you have it, I don't know why you're not using it with with youth kids as well. We go to the doctor, and my son just went a month ago, and he's in the 92nd percentile of height, right? Yeah. I mean, he's 4 years old. They're tracking numbers. Yeah. Why shouldn't we be tracking numbers, right? It's data. Why don't you want data? It keeps everyone accountable. It shows progress. It shows if you're not progressing. So that's why we use it. We definitely just want to keep running data, and eventually maybe we can do something about in the youth ages of it. We can have some conversation with Blast and Hit Tracks. Look, in the last 10 years, these are the numbers we've come up with. We'd love to kind of get where you guys are at and see the correlation, where they similar, where they differentiate. But it's been a beautiful thing, being able to take a piece of what we have here in the facility out to a field, and I know the kids love it. Just like Eric was saying, it's not your everyday normal practice. Yeah. We definitely incentivize it. We create competitiveness. We create the fun. We have these games where these kids are battling for prizes, for gear. So that's the biggest part of it, is no matter what we're doing and how we're doing it, we're always making sure these kids have fun. And you can ask every single one of these kids that train with us, there's a lot, is the two things I ask them after every practice is, did you get better and did you have fun? And if you didn't, then they know they need to come talk to me after that practice, because I want to know why. Because I need to talk to our staff, and we need to be on the same page, because every single one of these kids should be having fun.
So I'm going to add on to that topic. So you see these kids a lot on the field, off the field, in the facility. How have you seen them? Because we had a whole podcast on it. Our small group training. It's newer. It's not. You don't see a lot of it. You see a lot of one-on-one training, and especially when we were playing, you see that at a young age. Kids start training with that one-on-one at a young age.
Yeah.
How do you see? Because a lot of parents would think, oh, if they're playing with their friend, they're not going to be purposeful. They're just going to kind of mess around with their friend. How have you seen these young kids kind of buy into that group setting?
Yeah, I think it brings out the best in them, because they now have, I don't know, not a scale, but they see other kids like, oh, he's better than
comparison.
me. This comparison to where it's like, wow, I really got to work on my craft, or I gotta get better in this part of my game because that's where I'm not as skilled.
Yep.
So being able to train an environment with kids at their age and see where kids are at when they're in their skill sets it makes them push up even harder. That's what I love about it. It's not one guy hitting or one guy pitching to where he's got no comparison, nothing to go up against, so he or she thinks that they're in a good spot when in reality they may be in a good spot or they may not be, So, we are well aware. Like we definitely group the kids with their age pairings. We're not gonna have an 8-year-old hit with a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
There's no way. Not that there's no way. Obviously, if we had to, we would. But we group them up with their age range because we want the same guys competing and having fun with each other, and creating relationships outside of their normal school, their normal teams. Like these kids come from different teams, different schools, and we want them to feel like they're on their own team in this environment.
Yeah. And so I'm going to flip it on its head a little bit and kind of go on the opposite side to you, Eric. How have you seen the parents be able to trust that their kid, like I said, it's not going to goof off?
I know it's a little hard in here because when they're at the field, they can see what's going on. But when they're in here, we don't let parents view the sessions just from an environmental point of view. So I think Kurt's reports help a ton, where we can we show our work, hey, this we are tracking these things. Here are the numbers, and I think the successes that we're having in general at the older ages kind of validates to the parents, hey, there's some real stuff going on in there, and my child gets to experience that at a younger age at a, like I said, a really low price point. Really. Helps parents know that, hey, the right things are going on. And then over the course of time, relationships are developed and stuff like that. But like I said, for when we're actually in here, it's a little harder, more difficult to do that than the field. But it's all kind of one cohesive system that people like systems, people like structure,
Absolutely.
and we provide a ton of that.
Right. Anything else?
Yeah, talk a little real quick about the spring.
Yeah.
So we're finishing up the winter. We got about 3 more weeks left where we have a little overflow sessions from a rain out we had. But then we'll take a couple weeks off in February, and then we'll start the spring YDP. I think it's February 14th, whatever that third week of February is. And then what that looks like is we don't have our college, our pro, and our high school players in here during the spring for the most part.
They'll be playing.
Yeah, they all go. So this is really the time of the year in the spring where we dedicate our resources here at KPI to the youth. So we're going to be running individual YDP kind of styles training where you can sign up on your own. You can have team training where you sign up as a team for our offerings. If you're a member of KPI, you can come in Friday nights and get hitting with Coach Kurt and pitching with Coach Justin in 1-on-4 settings. So just for people that are listening and want to know what we're doing in the spring and want to know how they're going to get involved, the spring is the best time to be in here as a youth player because you get 100% of our resources and attention. So we're going to have some pretty cool stuff going on in the spring for the youth that's really, really unique and special.
Yeah. We're already, obviously we're in the middle of winter, but we're already prepping for the spring because we are completely focused just on our youth kids, and because obviously high school, college, and pro guys are out of here. But I would highly suggest that you guys start looking at your schedules, and when we do send out the registration, sign up because I already know spots are going to go quick, whether that's for individualized or for teams. So that would be my advice and suggestion is once you see the email come over, don't let it go into your inbox. Get on it quick because spots are going to fill up.
And we might, and I'm not going to put myself on it, but as we unveil the schedule and we kind of it's a puzzle we have to piece together every season. We could be offering some kind of a hit tracks league kind of a situation, but it depends on how the schedule falls and how registration is for some of those things.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you guys very much for listening. As you can hear, a lot in store for the upcoming year. I hope you guys have a blessed year this year. Into 2022 we go. Thank you guys for listening to Talking Points with KPI episode 23. Thank you guys for listening.